Okay, hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. It is Friday, February 14th, 2025. It's Valentine's Day in the United States. I know it's celebrated in Canada and the United Kingdom, I think in France and some other parts of Europe. So if you're not familiar with this, it is the day where couples just remember each other and send roses and chocolates and things along those lines. Okay, so it's Valentine's Day. On Valentine's Day, well, let me also add this. Do you remember what happened with the Chernobyl nuclear disaster back in the 1980s? Well, on Valentine's Day, the Russians thought it was a good idea to hit the Chernobyl plant again with a drone. I'm not making this up. Didn't do a lot of damage, but I'd like if you had asked me in the beginning of this when I first started, at some point you'll be talking about how the Russians are hitting Chernobyl with a drone, and I wouldn't have believed you. But then I'm of two minds of this because I do believe you because like the day that the day that there's a big conference, a NATO conference, or a Ramstein, or like now there's the Munich conference going on, the Russians almost always do something, massive missile attack or some kind of thing to kind of draw attention away from it. They do this. There's almost a pattern to it. And again, there's the big Munich conference going on today, and we're talking about that in the news as well. I'll be covering that today in the three big stories. Okay, let's look at what's going on here. I'll talk more about the Chernobyl strike in just a moment. Let's start here with the losses of the occupiers in Ukraine. 1,200 Russians off the battlefield, 17 tanks, 16 armored fighting vehicles, 81 artillery systems, and then 3 air defense systems, but 156 vehicles and fuel tanks. The number of vehicles and fuel tanks just keeps going up, even as the casualty rates go down. Now, one of my viewers asked me a question the other day, and I thought this was a good one. Do you think that the number of assaults has gone down because of saving up troops for a massive assault? I'm not sure that that's what it is. I think that there's some other factors at play. Could be the weather, could be the logistics, could be not being able to get oil or petroleum products to, gasoline, petrol, whatever. And there's another answer, and I'll get to that in just a moment, what the other answer is. Okay, this is the British intelligence update on January 2025, or in January 2025, Russia launched approximately 2,400 one-way attack uncrewed aerial systems, that's drones, into Ukraine, surpassing December's 2024's total was 1,700. Wow. January 2025 is total is comparable to the November 2024 and October totals. Like that's what Russia has been doing with these drone strikes. Okay, so here's some images of what it looks like after artillery bombardments, kamikaze drones, airstrikes against civilian infrastructure in Kherson. 2 people have died, 5 more were injured due to Russian aggression. We're looking inside someone's home here. Okay. Okay, let's talk about what's going on with Chernobyl. So President Zelensky last night a Russian attack drone with high explosive warhead struck the shelter protecting the world from radiation at the destroyed 4th power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The shelter was built by Ukraine together with other countries of Europe and the world, together with America, all those committed to real security for humanity. The only country in the world that attacks such sites occupies nuclear power plants and wages war without any regard for the consequences is today's Russia. I think that's fair. There's something about Russia that they're just willing to keep doing that sort of thing. Russian drone that attacked Chernobyl nuclear power plant tonight was loaded with high explosive warhead. The impact caused a significant damage to the shelter of the destroyed Unit 4. A fire broke out, which was extinguished. So far, the radiation level has not increased. Constant monitoring is being conducted. What does Russia want to prove by shelling the Chernobyl nuclear power plant before peace talks? You can see the hole in the shelter, and this thing was massive. Like this, the shelter. I'll show you that in just a moment. Here is the photo of the debris of the Russian Shahed kamikaze drone, which targeted the Chernobyl nuclear power plant from the other side. Okay, and Anton Goroshenko talks about it like this: the Russian strike on the protective sarcophagus, because they put this big thing over the power plant to like keep it contained, keep it sealed, is not accidental. It is symbolic. I think he's probably right about that. I like okay, so let's look at it. It could be that it was just a stray drone, or it was just kind of flew off course, or maybe it was electronically suppressed. But you would think the Russians wouldn't be flying it right around there. You'd think that they were smart enough to know that that's not a good idea. So I don't think that it was accidental. By the way, the sarcophagus was completed during President Trump's first tenure in the White House. Total cost of the shelter was 2.5 billion with a B US dollars. The protective structure over the fourth emergency power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is a symbol of protection, shelter, and safety. I know they pronounce this differently, like Chornobyl or something like that in Ukraine. I'm not sure exactly how that is. I grew up in the 80s hearing it as Chernobyl. Uh, it's a symbol of heroism, of united efforts to protect lives. Russia once again shows that it's a culture of death and that it does not care about humanity. So this is what it actually looks like being put in place and that sort of thing. Like it was a massive thing to create this thing, and they're attacking it. Just it's unbelievable. Okay. By the way, the appropriate response to Russia's nuclear T in Europe is to call NATO Article 4. Quote, the parties will consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. Now, Ukraine's not part of NATO, but if I was in Lithuania, I'd be calling for this because they're pretty close to that border. When I was in Belarus, we couldn't go to certain areas of Belarus just because it still kind of had some radiation-ish kind of effect from Chernobyl. Okay. Um, Kaya Kallas says Russia recklessly attacked again the Chernobyl nuclear site. Such attacks on civilian nuclear sites are unacceptable. It shows once again that Russia is just not looking for peace. And I think there probably is something to that. I think there's a reason why they're saying it. What the reason is, maybe I could get that wrong, but there's a reason behind it. Meanwhile, Putin's spokesperson, Peskov, claims that Russia did not target Ukraine's nuclear sites, calling the accusations a provocation and a manipulation. He was suggesting, in another article that I read, he was suggesting that this was Ukraine doing this, perhaps. And yeah, sure. Okay. Russia never invaded or never bombs or always tells the truth, but yeah, okay. Andrew Perpetua said, I can't wait for the American media to not cover Russia literally attacking the Chernobyl sarcophagus. Now, if you see this in news in the United States, please let me know, like on news, on TV, please let me know. Put that in the comments below. I'd like to know which media outlets, if any, were covering it. Okay, let's turn our attention to the battlefield very briefly. So what we know is that we had what was it, 1,200 Russians off the battlefield, and I thought to myself as I was hearing that, okay, probably low 30s. Well, it turns out that it's 35 assaults, and so again, that correlation is just really weird. It's like when we watch Pokrovsk, we can kind of tell what the casualty rate is. Now, what's going on with Pokrovsk? It could be those things I mentioned, but Zelensky kind of alluded to something else. Zelensky, quote, the situation in the Pokrovsk direction has improved in recent days. He added, quote, we are more confident than we were before, without providing further details. So something's been shored up. My working theory is it's that, remember we were talking about the combined arms between drones and infantry and whatever, like, so they have this now. It's like close infantry support, or close, I think that's the term, like what warthogs used to be, like this close support. And I think it's just making it really tough for the Russians to be able to push through. And those drones are also going after vehicles, and I'll show you some of the drone kind of attacks in just a moment. Ukraine holds 500 kilometers squared of Russian territory in the Kursk oblast. Still, Ukraine's commander-in-chief reports sustained control of territory inside Russia, forcing Moscow to redirect most of its most combat-capable units from other fronts. And that's the beauty of what Kursk was. Now, they've lost a lot of area in the Kursk region since they initially invaded. They still hold 500 kilometers, lost a majority of it, let's say. But it's also forcing Russia to keep combat units there that would otherwise be tied up elsewhere on Ukrainian territory. Okay, Here's what I was talking about. These are videos of FPV drones from their site, and they're attacking 152 millimeter guns and destroying those. And it's just fascinating to watch what drones can do. All right, my friends. Love is in the air. Meet the Ukrainian couple fighting for their country who met and married in the midst of the Russian invasion. This Valentine's Day, their dedication to hope inspires all of us. So yeah, they met as a consequence of signing up and working on the war together. So she's saying she first was not interested in him, and but over time he won her heart. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.